It was a late afternoon in the quiet suburbs. The golden light of the sun stretched across the living room, illuminating the fine dust particles that drifted lazily in the still air. Emma sat at the kitchen table, her hands trembling as she held a folded piece of paper. It was not just any letter. To her, it felt like the past had forced its way back into the present, uninvited, unwanted, yet impossible to ignore. The handwriting was unmistakable. After so many years, after so many nights of trying to erase his memory, she still recognized the loops of every letter, the uneven strokes where impatience had betrayed him. It was the writing of her estranged husband, the man who had walked away when Liam, their only son, had been barely 12 years old. She had sworn never to let that man's shadow fall across their lives again, yet here it was, spelled out in ink, heavy with unfinished sentences and buried pain. Emma's heart pounded as she read the first lines. The words spoke of regret, of longing, of a desire to see the son he had abandoned. Each sentence felt like a knife turning in her chest. She had worked tirelessly to build a life without him, to create a home where Liam would never need to wonder why his father was gone. Now the fragile structure of that effort trembled in her hands, reduced to paper and ink. When Liam entered the house that evening, he expected nothing more than the routine silence, perhaps a soft greeting, perhaps nothing at all. He dropped his backpack to the floor, careless as always, but froze when he saw his mother's expression. There was no mistaking the pain etched across her face, the tightness in her jaw, the way her eyes seemed to burn with a storm that had been waiting for years to break. Emma had found the letter he had hidden. She had uncovered the secret he was not ready to share. Liam had received the message days earlier, had read and reread it in the privacy of his room, unsure whether to believe the promises it contained. He had folded it carefully, tucked it away, hoping for the courage to decide. He wanted to meet the man who had vanished from his childhood, the man whose absence had shaped his identity. Yet he feared the fury his mother would feel if she ever discovered the truth. Now the choice had been made for him. The letter lay exposed on the table, a silent witness to the tension filling the room. Emma's mind raced with memories she had tried to bury. The nights spent waiting at the window with a young Liam who never understood why his father never returned. The excuses she invented, the tears she cried behind closed doors. She had promised herself that her son would grow up safe from false hopes. But Liam's eyes, wide with a mixture of guilt and determination, told her that promise was slipping away. In that moment, Emma felt torn between anger and despair. She had wanted to shield her son from disappointment, yet he seemed to crave the truth more than protection. The years of silence had created a hunger in him, a longing that no amount of motherly love could fully satisfy. For Liam, the absence of his father was not just a wound, it was a mystery, demanding resolution. He was no longer the small boy waiting by the window. He was nearly a man, and the unanswered questions of his childhood pressed heavily upon him. Emma sank into a chair, overwhelmed by the realization that she could no longer control the path her son would take. She had built walls around their lives, but Liam was ready to climb over them, ready to risk pain for the chance of understanding. The thought filled her with dread. She feared that meeting his father would only bring more heartbreak, more lies, more abandonment. Yet she also knew she could not hold him back forever. The evening deepened outside. Shadows stretched across the room as the last of the golden light faded. The letter remained on the table between them, an object both fragile and powerful, capable of reshaping the course of their lives. Emma pressed her hands against her face, silently battling with herself. Liam stood nearby, his shoulders squared, his posture filled with quiet resolve. The house had never felt so divided. On one side was the mother, desperate to preserve the life she had built out of pain and sacrifice. On the other stood the son, yearning for answers only the absent father could provide. Between them lay the truth, scrawled in ink, waiting to shatter whatever fragile peace remained. That night nothing was resolved. No words were spoken that could bridge the distance forming between them. But something irreversible had begun. Emma knew her son would not let the matter rest. The letter had opened a door she could never close again. In the silence of that suburban home, the weight of the past pressed down with merciless force. And as the darkness settled in, mother and son remained trapped on opposite sides of the same wound, unsure if love would be enough to carry them through what was to come.